The Haunting of Bevanwood Manor. Chapter 1: The Arrival. The old Bevanwood Manor stood on the outskirts of the small town of Seno, shrouded in mystery and foreboding tales. Built in the early 19th century by the enigmatic Lord Bartholomew Bevanwood, the mansion had been the subject of local legend for generations. Many said it was haunted, that the spirits of Lord Bevanwood and his ill-fated family still roamed its dark corridors. Despite these warnings, the Morgans, a family from the city, decided to purchase the manor as a summer retreat. John Morgan, his wife Claire, and their two children, Emily and John, arrived at Bevanwood Manor on a bright summer morning. The house, though weathered by time, retained an air of grandeur. Tall, narrow windows lined its face, and ivy clung to the stone walls like the memory of a forgotten age. "It's beautiful," Claire said, stepping out of the car and gazing at the manor. "Like something out of a history book." "Or a horror story," John muttered under his breath, earning a glare from his sister. "Let's not jump to conclusions," John said, smiling. "We came here to have an adventure, remember? And this place is perfect for that." The family began unpacking, and soon the manor was filled with the sounds of their laughter and chatter. As the day turned to evening, they gathered in the grand dining hall, its long tables stretching out beneath a chandelier that had once sparkled with the light of countless balls and banquets. "It's like a palace," Emily said, her eyes wide with wonder. "Let's hope it's as comfortable as it is impressive," Claire replied, glancing around. They spent their first night at the manor peacefully, but as the days passed, strange occurrences began to unfold. It started with small things: doors left ajar, cold drafts in warm rooms, and the distant sound of footsteps echoing through the halls. Chapter 2: The Unseen Presence. One evening, as the family sat in the living room by the fireplace, Emily suddenly looked up, her eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" John asked, glancing at his daughter. "A whisper. Someone was whispering my name." John exchanged a concerned look with Claire. "It was probably just the wind, Emily. This old house makes a lot of noises." But Emily was not convinced. She had heard it clearly, and it sent chills down her spine. Later that night, as the family slept, Claire woke up to the sound of creaking floorboards. She sat up, straining to listen, and heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps outside their bedroom door. She nudged John awake. "John, someone's in the house." John listened for a moment, then grabbed a flashlight from the nightstand. "Stay here," he whispered, creeping towards the door. As he opened it, the footsteps stopped. The hallway was empty. He shone the flashlight down the corridor, but there was no one there. Returning to the bedroom, he found Claire sitting up in bed, her eyes wide with fear. "There's no one there," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "But I heard it too," Claire insisted. "Someone was walking right outside our door." "Maybe it was just the house settling," John suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Chapter 3: The Discovery. The next morning, John decided to explore the attic, a dusty, cluttered space filled with old furniture, trunks, and forgotten relics. As he sifted through the debris, he found a leather-bound journal tucked away in a corner. Blowing off the dust, he opened it and began to read. The journal belonged to Lord Bartholomew Bevanwood. It detailed the manor's history, from its construction to the strange events that led to the family's demise. According to the journal, Lord Bevanwood had dabbled in the occult, performing rituals and summoning spirits. John brought the journal to his parents, who read it with growing unease. "This explains a lot," John said. Maybe the stories about this place being haunted aren't just myths. Should we leave? Claire asked, her voice trembling. We've put so much into this place already, John replied. Let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe there's a logical explanation for everything. But as the days passed, the disturbances grew more frequent and intense. Shadows moved on their own, disembodied voices whispered in the night, and objects were found in places they hadn't been left. Chapter 4: The Seance. Desperate for answers, the Morgans decided to hold a séance. They invited a local medium, Madame Sophie, who had a reputation for communicating with spirits. She arrived one evening, bringing with her a sense of mystery and anticipation. The family gathered in the dining hall, the room dimly lit by candles. Madame Sophie placed her hands on the table and closed her eyes. "Spirits of Bevanwood Manor," she intoned, "we seek to understand your presence. Reveal yourselves to us." The air grew cold, and the candles flickered. A low moan echoed through the room, and the table began to tremble. Madame Sophie's eyes flew open. "They are here," she whispered. "The spirits of Lord Bevanwood and his family. They are trapped, unable to move on." "Why?" John asked. "Why are they still here?" Madame Sophie's face grew pale. "There is a darkness in this house, a malevolent force that binds them. It feeds on fear and suffering." "How can we help them?" Claire asked. "You must find the source of the darkness," Madame Sophie replied. "Only then can you free the spirits and bring peace to this house." Chapter 5: The Hidden Room. Determined to uncover the truth, the family began searching the house for clues. They scoured every room, every hidden corner, but found nothing unusual. Then, one day, Emily stumbled upon a hidden door behind a bookcase in the library. The door led to a small, windowless room filled with strange symbols and artifacts. "This must be where Lord Bevanwood performed his rituals," Emily said, her voice echoing in the confined space. John examined the artifacts and found a large, ornate box. Opening it, he discovered a collection of ancient books and scrolls, filled with incantations and spells. "These must be the source of the darkness," he said. As they examined the contents, the air in the room grew colder, and a sense of dread filled their hearts. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The candles flickered, and the shadows on the walls seemed to come alive. "What's happening?" John cried, clutching his sister's hand. "The darkness is trying to stop us," Madame Sophie said. "We must find a way to break its hold." Chapter 6: The Final Confrontation. With Madame Sophie's guidance, the family began to recite a banishment spell from one of the ancient books. As they chanted, the shadows grew more agitated, swirling around them like a storm. "Keep going," Madame Sophie urged. "We must not stop." The room shook, and a deep, guttural voice filled the air. "You cannot defeat me," it roared. "I am eternal." But the Morgans did not waver. They continued to chant, their voices rising in unison. As they reached the final words of the spell, a blinding light filled the room. The shadows shrieked and writhed, then dissipated into nothingness. The room fell silent, and the air grew warm once more. The door creaked open, and the family stepped out, exhausted but victorious. "Is it over?" Claire asked, her voice trembling. Madame Sophie nodded. "The darkness has been banished. The spirits of Lord Bevanwood and his family are free." Chapter 7: The Aftermath. In the days that followed, the disturbances ceased. The manor, once a place of fear and dread, became a home filled with warmth and light. The Morgans spent their remaining summer days exploring the grounds, enjoying the beauty and serenity of Bevanwood Manor. One evening, as the family sat by the fireplace, Emily looked up at her parents. "I'm glad we stayed," she said. "This place feels like home now." John smiled and put his arm around his daughter. "It does, doesn't it? Sometimes, the scariest places can become the most beautiful, once you understand them." The family continued to live at Bevanwood Manor, their bond stronger than ever. And though the legends of the haunted house persisted in the town of Seno, the Morgans knew the truth. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, turning a house of fear into a home of love and light. As the sun set behind the hills, casting a golden glow over Bevanwood Manor, the family gathered on the porch, watching the stars emerge one by one. They had found their adventure, and it had led them to a place they never expected, a home filled with peace, warmth, and the memories of a summer they would never forget. Epilogue: The twist. Years passed, and the Morgans grew older. Emily and John went off to college, and John and Claire settled into a peaceful retirement. Bevanwood Manor remained a beloved family home, its dark past a distant memory. One crisp autumn day, as John was clearing out the attic, he stumbled upon an old, dusty trunk he hadn't seen before. Curious, he opened it and found a collection of letters and photographs. They detailed the life of Lord Bevanwood's younger brother, Thomas, who had been banished from the family for reasons unknown. As John read through the letters, a chilling realization dawned on him. Thomas had been the true master of the dark rituals, using his brother as a cover for his malevolent practices. The banishment spell they had used years ago had only suppressed the darkness, not destroyed it. Suddenly, the air in the attic grew cold, and the shadows lengthened. John felt a familiar sense of dread as he turned to leave, but the attic door slammed shut, trapping him inside. The voice of Thomas Bevanwood echoed through the room, filled with anger and malice. "You thought you could defeat me?" the voice hissed. "You only delayed the inevitable. Now, the darkness will rise again." As the shadows closed in, John realized that the true battle was just beginning. The darkness of Bevanwood Manor had not been vanquished, it had only been waiting, biding its time. And now, it was ready to reclaim its hold. The end was not as they had thought. The story of Bevanwood Manor was far from over, and the Morgans would have to face the darkness once more, armed with the knowledge of its true origin. If you liked the video, then please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks.